Welcome to Factorio Masterclass. My name is Nilaus and this is the series of tutorials and guides here on YouTube covering all aspects of the game and aims to provide insights and resources to help you improve your game as an engineer. Each of these episodes starts as a workshop session streamed live on my Twitch channel. This is over at twitch.tv/Nilaus and you're very welcome to drop by. Usually this takes place on Mondays at 8 PM Central European Time, so feel free to drop by and help decide, design and discuss upcoming guides. If you want to watch more of these tutorial videos, then hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Feedback is very welcome, of course. Hit the comment section, the Discord, or join the live streams. In this episode, we're going to dive into something that has been quite requested lately, and that's actually how to do the rocket parts in order to launch the first couple of rockets. I'm not focusing on a very late game build because that comes in a later Factorio Masterclass, but I'm focusing on how to get, let's say, what you need for your first 50 rockets, or something like that. Now the findings I did was actually a bit surprising to myself, so I hope that you will follow along and see where it takes us. Let's dive in. Now let's take a look at it. We're going to start by looking at what it takes to actually launch a rocket. Here we go. We need to make 100 of these rocket parts. Each of them take 10 rocket control units, 10 low density structures, and 10 rocket fuel. So that means you need 1000 of each of the rocket control units, low density structures, and rocket fuel to launch a single rocket. However, let me just make this absolutely clear so there's no confusion. Before you start putting anything into the rocket silo, you must, without a doubt, add 3 productivity modules. Since this is your most expensive item, adding 30% productivity or 40% productivity is going to make a huge difference, and that reduces the amount of materials you need from 1000 of each to 715 of each. 714 point something, but we're going to make it 715. That is a huge difference, so always make these productivity modules and before you even get started. Now, in order to also get some space science, we have to launch the satellite. The satellite here is also requiring some low density structures and some rocket fuel. We're going to ignore all the rest of the stuff because we will build that somewhere else in the base. But we need to make sure that we know exactly how much we need of low density structures, rocket control units, and rocket fuel, because that's what we're designing for today. So I've made this little calculator up here. Basically what it does is, if you open, it takes 715 of each, plus the 100 for the satellite, plus the 50 for the satellite. That gives us a total of 815, 765, and 715. What I'm then doing is, I need to know how much should I make. Well, every time I launch a rocket, I'm going to get 1000 science. And if you've watched some of my previous Factorio Masterclass, you will know that I've designed all my other sciences towards 90 per minute. So how about launching rockets so that we would get 90 science per minute? The way I'm doing this is basically saying, for each rocket cost all of this, then I'm going to multiply it by 90 and then divide it by 100. And that gives me, if you look over on the right hand side, I need 73 low density structures per minute, 68 rocket fuel per minute, and 64 rocket control units per minute. However, when we build our utility science, we assumed that we would have low density structures somewhere just crafted for us, but that somewhere is in this tutorial. So we have to make sure that if I'm going to make 90 utility science per minute, then I also need to add 90 low density structures per minute. So you can see here, it's 3 inbound low density and 3 outbound utility science. So that's what we get here, plus 90. And then we get the final numbers that we have to design for. 163 low density per minute, 68 rocket fuel per minute, and 64 rocket control units per minute. So that's our design goals. Let's start designing that. Let's start with the rocket fuel. Now the rocket fuel is made, and we are just going to say this will be our outbound. Rocket fuel is really weird because it only has a one input, and that's the oil. So what we're going to do here is we are going to make rocket fuel. And I'm going to do this design. And if we look at this one, so the thing is, there just happens to be a really nice ratio here This one is crafting. It is crafting speed 1. It is crafting 1 every 2 seconds. So that's 0.5 per second. Now this gets a bit weird, I think. But we're going to open the calculator just to make sure that we go do the calculations together. If we look at this, we have 10 every 30 seconds. And the crafting speed of the blue assembler is 0.75. Boom, that's 0.25. And then I have 2 of those, 0.5. That means this is producing 0.5 per second. This is consuming 0.5 per second. And that's amazing. So it works. Now, this might be a good time for you to say, hey, you're melting rocket things. This is endgame. Why are you not using blue belts and yellow assemblers? Because they are available. And let me just take a step back and explain why I don't do this. So when I do sort of the normal progression towards the rocket, I'm researching yellow science, the utility science, before I research productivity science or production science. And that means that by the time I get production science going, that will be the last tech I have. They will start. At that point, I'll start researching first beacons, then Covex. Covex is a very expensive one, and there maybe liquefaction, and only sort of further down the line will I start researching assembly machines 3 and blue belts. Now, if I have to wait until I have blue belts and assembly machine 3, then I'm going to be idle in my base. So I'd much rather build it like this also. Even if I'm building with faster belts and better assemblers, well, I have to ask myself what is really the objective of it. Because this is pretty cheap, it'll get the job done. Yes, you will need more assemblers, but it doesn't really matter at this point. These are super cheap materials, so let's consider this. So let's continue. We are going to make this bigger. And it just so happens that if I make this size here, like that, put some lights because of course, and you also go in here. There. Let's have a look at how much this is producing. I'm using the max rate calculator to get an estimate. I'm going to use items per minute. This is making 18. And if you remember, our target was 68. So the thing is with 18, that's going to be 36, 54, 72. And just for anyone to check, 72. So I could knock off a few of these. However, you might have a tank or a car or a few trains here and there that would like to get some fuel in. So I'm going to leave it as it is. That's going to be 72 per minute is now being produced here. Very simple build. We're not going to talk about how to upgrade it, but that will be, well, we are going to talk about it, but we're not going to talk about it right now. We're going to wait until the end when we build all the designs and we can talk about upgrading. With the rocket fuel working, it's time for us to take a look at the low density structures. Now remember, the low density structures actually needs 163 per minute. And that's what we are going to be trying to design for. Let's build one of these and just have a look at what it takes to make low density structures. So it needs a lot of copper and plus some steel plate and plus some plastic. So that's what we're looking for. Let's start making some basic design. I'm going to make like this. Here, I'm going to get an inbound and I'm going to get an outbound. I'm going to get some inbounds on the either side. I want to get the copper on the outside. So copper goes on the outside, comes in from the outside. I'm going to grab from this belt and here, and I'm going to go output. These two are grabbing and output. Okay, so I'm going to take this and like the other one above, I also need some fuel, some electricity. This one will be here, here, here. Good. Let's have a look at the quantity here. So this one will make 27 per minute. And 27 per minute, well, if I make 3 of these builds, then it's going to be 81 per minute. And if I then double it again, it's going to be 162. Now 162 is, in my world, good enough. And now I need to make sure that I get it up there. Boom. That one and that one. Let's remove the last bits here. We don't need those. There. So, oops, we forgot some lights. Lights are important. Where do we want the lights? I'll just make it like this. We do need some lights here. Good. And I will just hook it up to this side so it looks nicer. Doesn't go blinky. And I'm instead of having... No, let's do another thing first. Let's have a look at this to confirm. And if I switch to 81 per minute, if I switch to per second, you can see that it uses 27 copper per second, which is less than the 30 items per second that a red belt can consume. So this is good. What that means is I can take one red belt of copper inbound and feed all of this. But I can also do this one. That means I can take a full belt in here, and I can take the other belt and split out to the outside. So let's try that. And it goes out there. And that works. Now this one has to be split into 2 half belts or 2 mixed belts. I will do that in the following manner. This one goes straight in. This one goes below. And goes in. You know, probably better to open this one like that. And then we have the outbounds. Here. Is that even correct? No, I can't do that. This is just a balancer. It's, if you've seen what I do, then you've seen more of those before. That just makes sure that what we get is output balanced. Looking good. Spacing is fine. And all of this should be working with the exception of course, we've forgotten to build these. It's kind of problematic. There has to be something wrong somewhere, right? I'm also going to build it here. Let's make sure the inputs are going in first. And the outputs. So what we're now doing now is we are going to build. Let's take the whole thing with max rate calculator. Select it. It gets us 162 per minute, which is pretty much what we need. I'm going to say that's what we need. So I'm really happy with this. This is good. We just leave it running as it is, and we'll get all the stuff we need. Let's look at the last build. The last build is rocket control units. So let's start by drawing the output belt, because why not? And make sure that it aligns with the other one, because why not? And that rocket belt, or rocket control unit here. Let's look at the recipe. The recipe is one single processor unit plus one single speed module. And the speed module is, well, speed module is up here. Some advanced circuits and some electronic circuits, and it builds on a 15-second cycle. This builds on a 30-second cycle, so I need one of these for one speed module assembler for 2 rocket control unit assemblers. Just so happens that's a nice ratio. We'll try to keep that ratio alive. Here. This one goes in, and this one goes out. And then can go in on this side. That means on this side we are going to take, here we're going to take, how are we going to do it? We're going to do it, how do I do it up here? That one. And I'm going to copy again to that one and that one. I'm going to take, something has to be taken out because we do need some fuel as well. Not fuel, sorry. I keep saying fuel, but it's actually just there. Need more undergrounds. That one. And let's get some lights here and here. This one now has to be done as well. That one, that one, that one, that one. Yes. So this one, I'm going to take a look at how much this is producing. What we can see here is that the outputs of the top row is 18 and the input to the bottom row here is 18. So there's a perfect match between the produced speed modules and the consumed speed modules. And I'm producing this, in this case, 18 per minute. And our target was 64. So I'm going to take this one and we're going to copy it many times. There, there, and here. So let's take a look at the max rate calculator, see how much we're getting. We're getting 72. It's too much, so we just kill that part. And then we take again. Here, it's going to be 66 now, and I was supposed to get 64, so I'm going to be happy about this one. So what we've now done is we have now built pretty much exactly what we need in terms of rocket fuel, low density structures, and rocket control units in order for us to launch another rocket every 11 minutes and some seconds, 11.1 minute. And I will also be, that will correspond to getting 90 science per second, not per minute, 1.5 per second. So all of this is not actually giving us much, but that will make sure that our rocket production is going to match with the rest of the base. This can of course be scaled up, but before we dive into how to scale it up and what to do in terms of upgrading, before I do that, I'd like to extend a big thank you to all the patrons who are supporting the channel and the work I do here. Without you, it would not be possible for me to continue to do the work I do here on the channel. So thank you very much for that. If you want to pledge, if you want to support, there's of course no obligation, but if you do, there's a link to Patreon, and that is the best way to support the channel. Thank you very much. Let's talk about upgrading, because of course this can be upgraded, but I do want to make a distinction between upgrading and late game build. This is a build that, as I've stated in the beginning, will get you to the first 50 rockets or so. But if you want to really go into the hundreds or thousands of rockets, this is not the build for you. This is the build that gets you to the build that gets you there. Now, I want to make that distinction because we will, in a later episode of the Factorio Masterclass, we will do late game builds for everything, but this is not it. This is about, you have built this, it's working, but you'd like to get a bit more out of it, either more productivity or more speed or a combination of both. So that's what we're going to look at. Let's start with the rocket control units because it's actually the simplest one. Now the first thing we want to do is, well, how about just upgrading all of the assemblers? That should definitely get some improvement. This will obviously give us an improvement here. If we look at items per minute, we're now up to 110 items per minute compared to the original 66. So massive increase. However, it's also a correspondingly increase in the inbound materials. So what we can do, the speed module up here cannot be upgraded to productivity modules, but you can actually put productivity modules into this and also speed modules. So I'm going to do this part here, and so what we have here is an improvement. This is now speed 0.9375, but it gives us 12% productivity. So it's really a nice boon here. So what I'm going to do is just illustrate what it would be like if everything was like this. That is really not very well done, is it? Nope. That one also on this side. So we just wait for all the modules to be placed. Yes, and now we do an overall, how is the productivity. So now it dropped down from the 110 to 92 per minute, but our consumption is also way less. You can see here that the output from the top row is way more than I need, but I would just say, all right, so what? It's just going to be idle for a bit. Or you can use the excess. Or you can of course remove some of them, but I don't really find a need for this. When they're idle, they don't really use any power. But this one also of course uses more power, so keep that in mind. I would not recommend do an upgrade where you put Mark III modules in here, because if you're in a point where you have enough Mark III modules at both productivity and speed to upgrade these, then you really should tear this down and build a completely module design. Let's look at the next one, the low density structures. Let's do the same trick we did before by just upgrading the assemblers And what would that give us? Well, let's have a look. If we do this, we are now getting 270 per minute. However, this will require 90 copper per second, and 2 red belts cannot provide 90 copper per second. So if I need to do this, I also have to upgrade the belts, at least the belts with copper. Now I'm just upgrading all of it. So now it will work. You can see that it flows faster, and it will get to the end of the belt on the outer sides, and actually also on the inner side as well. Again, I would do the same thing. I would say this is probably a good location to build some of these, and let's have a look at what this would look like if we just actually scaled it up. There. That one. Here, here, and yeah. And then we wait for all the robots our magical robots to do all the work. There, let's see. So now at this point, we, instead of going to 270, which we had without modules, we are now having a 226.8 per minute. Really respectable increase from the 162 we had previously. Also, if we look at how much materials we are saving, burn inserters, that was not it, speed mod, we were, because of the idea, or the max rate we were doing here was actually consuming 90 per second, but now we're down to 67.5. This is still more than 2 red belts, but it is less than 2 blue belts. So that's also a good upgrade. Again, remember the power, and I would not upgrade to Mark III modules. There I would also look at module design. Now let's take a look at the more difficult one, because this the rocket fuel is more difficult because it consists of some chemical plants that cannot be upgraded and some assemblers that can be upgraded. Also, the chemical plants take 3 modules, but these can take 4 modules when upgraded. So let's do the naive approach. Remember, this one was generating 72 per minute to start with. And I'm going to just naively upgrade this and see where we are in terms of capacity. So if we did this, we could get a whopping 120 rocket fuel per minute. However, there's a discrepancy between what is actually being required of solid fuel, 1200, and what is being produced, 720. So that definitely needs to be fixed. Now, my suggestion on how to fix it is using modules again like we did before. And we do this build. Now let's look at, since this is a little unit, let's look at in isolation what this unit looks like. It is deliberate that I put 2 speed modules in because this one has to be able to produce enough for both of these. Now if we look at the rates here, the interesting thing is seeing the balance between the outputs, this is what is produced by this one, is 39 per minute, and the inputs requested by these two is 37.5. So at this point there is a slight surplus, but not a big surplus. And if we just extrapolate that to the rest of the build, well, let's try that. Take this one, and I'm going to take all the stuff that isn't part of exactly this. Boom, boom. And there. So let's have a look at the overall productivity here. Now, instead of the 120 we had sort of in the ideal case, we have 100 per minute. I think that's still a very nice number. We can see the discrepancy here between what is produced by the chemical plants and what is being consumed by the assemblers. There's a slight surplus. Perfect, it will work. And the amount of oil being used is 165. So that's a pretty still modest number, and we've now managed to scale all of these up without using super expensive components. We used a lot of module 1, but they're pretty cheap because they only require red and green signs and no red and green circuits and no blue circuits. So this is my proposed build for rocket parts and how to make an upgrade to it, but without going to the very late game module build. Just getting a bit more out of this. If you like this video, if you're still awake, then I would imagine you've liked it. So how about hitting the like button and sharing a comment below if something some questions or comments or something more you want to see here. If you want to watch more videos like this, then consider subscribing. I hope that I have earned your subscription. It turns out that about half the viewers watching the channel are not subscribed. So if that's you, consider subscribing at least. If you want to be part of the work we do here on the designing, because this is not just my designs, this is all people in the stream who come by on Mondays over at Twitch TV/Nilaus and then help me design and figure out the debugging and all the good things, which will be the input for these masterclass sessions. So, hope to see you either here on YouTube, over on Discord, or on the Twitch streams. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Until next time, take care and stay effective.